There are two kinds of people watching this video right now, and the difference between them has nothing to do with how religious they are, nothing to do with how many Sundays they have attended, how many Bible verses they have memorized, how loud they sing in worship, or how clean their public reputation looks from the outside. The difference between these two kinds of people is invisible. It operates beneath the surface of ordinary life like a current beneath still water. You cannot see it with the naked eye. You cannot measure it with any instrument. But it determines everything. It determines the trajectory of your days, the outcome of your battles, the destination of your soul. And before this video is over, I'm going to give you 7 specific, concrete, biblically grounded signs that will tell you exactly which one you are. The protected, or the deceived. Now, before you decide which category you belong in, before your mind rushes to the comfortable conclusion that, of course, you are protected, of course your angel is fighting for you, of course everything is fine, I need you to hold that certainty loosely for the next several minutes. Because the most dangerous place a human being can occupy is not the place of obvious rebellion. The most dangerous place is the place of assumed safety, the place where you believe the shield is up because you have never stopped to check whether the conditions for the shield were ever actually met. The deceived are not, for the most part, people who chose darkness with full knowledge and deliberate malice. The deceived are most often people who were told a version of the truth that was just incomplete enough to leave a gap in understanding, a gap in relationship, gap between the idea of God and the living reality of God. And in that gap, the enemy does not need to attack you loudly. He simply needs to keep you comfortable, keep you occupied, keep you just spiritually busy enough to feel safe without ever being truly covered. This is not about fear, and I want to be clear about that from the beginning. What I am about to walk you through is not designed to terrify you into paralysis. It is designed to do the opposite, to wake something up in you, to activate an awareness that the enemy of your soul has worked very hard to suppress, and to show you that the protection available to you through the God who commands the angels is so far beyond what most people are experiencing that once you see the gap between where you are and where you could be, you will never be content to stay in the middle again. So stay with me, all the way to the end. Because the 7th sign, I promise you, is the one that changes everything. Let us start at the foundation. Let us start with what the protection of a guardian angel actually is, because most people have a picture of it in their mind that is so domesticated, so sanitized, so stripped of its actual power and texture and weight, that they are essentially relating to a greeting card image rather than a biblical reality. The guardian angel assigned to your life is not a passive presence. It is not ambient spiritual background radiation. Hebrews 1:14 asks a question that sounds almost too simple until you feel the full weight of it. Are not all angels ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation? Sent, dispatched, deployed. These are not beings who wander near you hoping to be helpful. These are beings on assignment, beings with a mission, a mandate, and a commanding authority over them that traces all the way back to the throne of the God who spoke the universe into existence. And that assignment is not generic. Matthew 18:10. And I need you to feel the intimacy of this verse. Jesus says, speaking of the little ones, the vulnerable, the humble, the believing, I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven. Always. Not occasionally, not during emergencies. Always. Meaning the angel assigned to you maintains a permanent, unbroken line of communication with the throne of God, specifically regarding you, your situation, your specific battles, your specific vulnerabilities, your specific destiny. The protection is not impersonal. It is not administered by a distant bureaucracy that processes your case when the queue gets to it. It is intimate. It is immediate. It is relentlessly personal. That is what is available. Now let us talk about who is actually receiving it. The first sign that your guardian angel is actively shielding you is this. Things go wrong, but they do not go all the way wrong. I want you to think about your life honestly for a moment. Not the sanitized version you present to other people. The real version. The one with the close calls and the near misses and the moments that should have destroyed you but somehow did not. The relationship that was toxic but ended before it took your whole life with it. The financial decision that was reckless, but the damage was contained in a way that, looking back, you cannot fully explain. The health scare that resolved. The accident where the angles were slightly different and everyone who looked at your car said, you should not have walked away from that, but you did. Read that list again and tell me what you see. Because the pattern of partial disaster, the pattern of things going wrong, but not all the way wrong, the bullets that should have been fatal somehow not being, is one of the most consistent fingerprints of angelic intervention in a human life. This is not the same as saying nothing bad ever happens to protected people. That is not the promise, and it is not the testimony of a single person in the biblical record. Job lost everything. Paul was beaten and shipwrecked and imprisoned. David spent years running for his life in caves. The protection of the guardian angel is not a guarantee of a pain-free life. It It is a guarantee that the enemy cannot take more than is permitted, that there is a boundary around your destruction, that no matter how far the attack advances, there is a wall it cannot breach. In the book of Job, before any of the catastrophe begins, there's a conversation in the heavenly court that most people skim past. Satan appears before God and makes an accusation. Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? The hedge. The accuser himself acknowledged its existence. He acknowledged that there was a boundary around Job's life that he could not penetrate without explicit divine permission. And what was on the other side of that hedge? The same thing that is on the other side of yours, if you are in covenant relationship with the God who commands the angels. A wall made not of human effort or moral perfectionism, but of the authoritative command of a God whose angelic armies are beyond number. Think about the hedge around your life. Think about the times the hedge held when you had no idea it was even there. The second sign is subtler, and this is the one that tends to stop people mid-sentence when they hear it. You have a persistent, recurring sense that you are being watched. Not in a paranoid way, not with anxiety or dread, but a quiet, deep, almost cellular awareness that you are not alone. That the space around you contains more than is visible. That when you sit in a silent room, the silence is occupied. Every major world religion and every cross-cultural mystical tradition in human history records this experience. But the biblical explanation for it is not mysticism. It is structure. It is the operational reality of beings who are stationed near you, beings whose presence, even when undetected by conscious thought, registers somewhere in the deep awareness of the human spirit, which was itself designed by God and carries an innate capacity to sense the presence of the divine and the angelic. Elisha's servant in 2 Kings 6 had no idea that the mountain surrounding them was filled with horses and chariots of fire, until Elisha prayed and God opened the young man's eyes. The angels were not there because Elisha prayed. They were already there. The prayer changed the perception, not the reality. If you have ever had that feeling, that awareness of presence, that sense of being accompanied through darkness, that inexplicable peace that arrived in a moment when every external circumstance was screaming at you to panic, that was not your imagination. That was the edge of your spirit brushing against the reality that your eyes have not been opened to see. The third sign is one that most people experience, but almost no one correctly identifies, and this one is urgent. You keep almost making decisions that would have been catastrophic, and something stops you. Think about that carefully. Not a near miss in traffic. I mean a near miss in decision making. You were about to say yes. You had already calculated the move. You had convinced yourself it made sense. The partnership, the investment, the relationship, the compromise, the choice to walk away from God quietly and call it something more sophisticated than what it actually was. And then something happened. A hesitation you could not explain. A conversation that arrived at precisely the wrong time from precisely the unexpected person. A verse that jumped off a page you were not even reading intentionally. A dream that left you unsettled in a way that changed your direction. The angel assigned to you has authority over your attention, not over your will. God does not override your will, and neither do his angels, but over what gets placed in front of your will, over what information arrives at what moment. The book of Enoch describes the guardian class as having specific operational authority in the space of human attention and decision. They can redirect, they can obstruct, they can cause information that would protect you to arrive at exactly the moment your decision is hanging in the balance. How many times has that happened in your life? How many disasters are you not living in right now because something you cannot name moved something you could not see? And the catastrophe that was approaching your door was redirected before it arrived. You do not know the answer to that question. You cannot know it this side of eternity. But I want you to sit with the fact that the answer is more than you think. It is almost certainly far more than you think. Before I go any further, I need to stop and ask you to do something for this mission. If this message is resonating with you, if these words are finding something real inside you and illuminating a reality you have always half suspected was there, tap the like button right now and subscribe to this channel if you have not already. I want to be direct with you about why this matters beyond the algorithm. There is someone in your circle of influence, or someone who will be algorithmically led to this video because of your engagement with it, who is living as the deceived right now without knowing it, someone whose protection is not activated, someone who is walking through a war zone thinking they are safe because nobody has ever shown them the difference between having a guardian angel theoretically and having one operationally deployed. Your like and your subscription are how this message reaches them. Do it as an act of intercession, not convenience. The fourth sign. You are consistently delivered from situations that should have consumed you. The delivery comes from directions you did not plan. In Exodus 14, the children of Israel are standing at the edge of the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army behind them and water in front of them and no option visible in any direction that leads to survival. And then the angel of God, the text says this explicitly in verse 19, an enormous detail that most people never notice because they are focused on Moses and the parted water. The angel of God, who had been going before the camp of Israel, moved. He moved from the front to the rear. He positioned himself between the advancing army and the vulnerable people. And the cloud that accompanied the angel was light to Israel and darkness to Egypt. The same presence, the same being. Two completely opposite effects depending on which side of the protection you are on. This is the mechanics of angelic shielding in action. The deliverance does not always come from the direction you are watching. It does not always look the way you imagined it would. Sometimes it comes from behind you, from a direction you had completely written off, from a source you would never have predicted, arriving at a moment when every piece of visible evidence told you the story was over. Think about the times in your life that fits that description. The door that opened in the wall that had no door. The resource that appeared when every account was empty. The person who showed up with exactly the right word, the right opportunity, the right lifeline at the exact moment when you had stopped looking for one. The protected know this pattern. They may not always have the theological framework to name it, but they know the feeling of deliverance arriving from an unexpected direction. They know the particular quality of relief that does not feel entirely explainable by the visible chain of events. The fifth sign is one that will make some people uncomfortable, and I think it is important precisely because of that discomfort. You face unusual, disproportionate, and at times seemingly irrational opposition. Here's what I mean. The protected life is not an easy life. In fact, there's a very specific kind of difficulty that tends to mark the lives of people whose guardian angel is actively engaged in their defense, and it is the difficulty of being a target. The enemy of your soul does not waste sophisticated tactical resources on people who present no threat to his kingdom. He does not deploy principalities against lives that are going nowhere spiritually. The intensity of the opposition you face is, in a very real sense, a measure of the significance of the assignment on your life. The attacks that seem designed specifically to derail you, the patterns of opposition that seem to follow you across multiple areas of life at once, the sense that there is an intelligence to the resistance you face. That is not paranoia. It is a correct perception of an actual reality. Daniel faced it. The angel sent to answer his prayer was delayed for 21 days by the prince of Persia, a territorial principality powerful enough that only the archangel Michael could break through the resistance. Why was Daniel facing that level of opposition? Because Daniel was carrying a revelation about the full scope of human history that God intended to release through him. The opposition was proportionate to the assignment, and while you were delayed, while the breakthrough seemed impossibly slow, while the resistance seemed to defy every reasonable expectation of how long a faithful person should have to wait, the war was already won. The answer was already dispatched. The fight was happening in a dimension you could not see. If you have felt that kind of opposition, if you have had the persistent sense that there is something specific about your life that something does not want you to discover, does not want you to become, does not want you to step into, pay attention to that feeling, it is intelligence. It is telling you that there is an assignment on your life significant enough to attract a specific kind of resistance. And on the other side of that resistance is the very thing the enemy is most afraid of you becoming. The sixth sign is this. You have a recurring, aching, almost involuntary hunger for something beyond what the physical world can provide. This one cuts deep, because it is the sign that points not just to angelic protection, but to the source from which that protection flows. The human soul was made for God, not made to be vaguely spiritual, not made to be philosophically open to the possibility of transcendence. Made for God, made with a specific, irreducible dimension that nothing in the created order can fill. A dimension that was designed by its maker to be satisfied by one thing and one thing only. Living, abiding, daily, honest communion with the living God through the person of Jesus Christ. Augustine called it the restless heart. You have made us for yourself, and our heart is restless until it rests in you. And the reason this restlessness is a sign of protection is because one of the primary tactics of the deceiving forces in the invisible realm is the suppression of that hunger, the spiritual anesthetic, the endless supply of noise, distraction, stimulation, busyness, entertainment, numbing agents of every variety. These are not neutral cultural phenomena. They are tactics. They are specifically designed to quiet the hunger that, if it were allowed to speak at full volume, would drive a person straight to their knees and straight into the arms of the God who is standing with open arms already. The fact that you are hungry means the anesthetic has not fully taken hold. The fact that you're watching a video about guardian angels and spiritual reality, that something in you responded to the title, that something in you kept watching past the point where a fully desensitized person would have scrolled away, that hunger is a sign. It is your spirit responding to the reality of the God who is pursuing you, the God whose angel has been fighting for you, the God who is not waiting for you to be perfect before he runs toward you. He is already running. And now we get to the seventh sign, the one I promised you, the one that is different from all the others. because the first 6 signs are things that happen to you, around you, in the circumstances of your life. They are evidences of a protection that is operational, signs you can look back at and recognize in the pattern of your history. But the 7th sign is not something you look back at. The 7th sign is something you choose, right now, in this moment. And it is the only sign that cannot be faked, cannot be assumed, and cannot be inherited from the faith of someone else. The 7th sign that your guardian angel is fully and completely shielding you is that you have made the decision, the conscious, personal, spoken, owned decision, to enter into a covenant relationship with Jesus Christ. Everything else we have talked about today describes the activity of protection. This is the activation of the covenant, under which the fullest expression of that protection operates. Psalm 34:7. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him and delivers them, around those who fear him. The fear of the Lord is not terror. It is not cowering in dread before an unpredictable power. The fear of the Lord is reverent, awestruck, life-orienting recognition of who God actually is and who you actually are in relation to him. It is the posture of the prodigal son on his way home, not confident in his own righteousness, not bringing a resume of good behavior, but simply coming, simply deciding that the distance is no longer acceptable, simply saying, I am done pretending I do not need you. The angel of the Lord encamps. The word encamps means to pitch a military tent, to establish a forward operating base, to set up a permanent defensive perimeter around those who fear him. The encampment is not a one-time visit. It is a settled, established, relentless defensive presence, the kind that does not pack up and leave when you have a bad week, does not relocate when you fail, does not abandon its post when the enemy's assault intensifies. It stays, it holds the line, it fights. And it fights because the commanding authority over it has staked a claim on your life that no power in the invisible realm has the authority to override. But this encampment is for those who fear him. It is not automatic. It is not universal. It is covenantal. It is the operational expression of a relationship. And the relationship is available to you right now, in this moment, at whatever level of brokenness or distance or doubt you are carrying into this conversation. I have talked to people who went to church for 30 years and never once made a genuine, personal, own decision to surrender their life to Jesus Christ. They had religion, they had familiarity, they had cultural Christianity, but they had never had the moment, the real moment, the honest moment, where they stopped performing and simply came. I have talked to people who considered themselves atheists right up until the second before they bent their knee and discovered that the God they had been arguing against was real and close and waiting with an almost unbearable patience. I have talked to people who were in the darkest rooms their own choices had ever put them in, who were absolutely certain they had gone too far, waited too long, done too much to ever come back. And every single one of them discovered that the Father was already running toward them before they had covered the first step of the distance between them. That person could be you. That moment could be now. I want you to understand something about this decision in the context of everything we have talked about today. When you give your life to Jesus Christ, when you assist you, when you say the words, mean the words, turn toward God and surrender what you have been white-knuckling since before you can remember, something happens in the invisible realm that is real and structural and permanent. The Apostle Paul writes in Ephesians 1 that you are sealed with the Holy Spirit of promise. The seal is not ceremonial. In the ancient world, a seal was a mark of ownership and authority. It communicated to everyone who saw it exactly whose property this was and exactly what authority stood behind it. When you are sealed by the Spirit of God, every principality, every power, every territorial darkness that has ever had any claim on any part of your life sees that seal and knows what it means. It means you belong to someone whose authority they cannot challenge. It means the covenant protection of the God of heaven is not just available to you. It is operational, it is activated, it is permanent. The angel that has been fighting for you, sometimes with everything it has. Against resistance, you will only understand when eternity is open to your full sight and finally has the full weight of a covenant assignment behind it. Not just a general mandate of protection, a specific, sealed, owned personal commission. You are no longer simply a human being in proximity to the divine. You are a child of God, heir to every promise, covered by every covenant, protected by the one who commands armies without number and calls every star by name and has not for a single second of your entire life taken his eyes off you. So here is what I want you to do right now, wherever you are, however you got here, whatever the distance is between you and the last time you felt close to God, or whether that distance feels like it has always been there, I want you to say these words out loud, in your real voice, not the polished version, the broken one, the honest one, the one that God has been waiting to hear. Jesus, I believe you are the Son of God. I believe you died for my sins, and that you are alive right now. I am done pretending I have this handled. I am done maintaining the distance. I surrender my life to you today. I accept you as my Lord. I accept you as my Savior. Come and make your home in me. Make me new. I am yours. If you just said that, if your lips just moved with those words and something shifted in a place inside you that you do not have language for yet, that shift is real. You just moved from one category to the other, from the deceived to the protected, from the exposed to the covered. And in the throne room of heaven, in the courts that Enoch saw and that John saw, and that every prophet who was permitted behind the veil has described with trembling inadequacy, there is a celebration happening right now with your name in the center of it. Now do one more thing. Scroll to the comments and type, I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. Do not explain it. Do not qualify it. Just type it and let it stand as a public declaration in the physical realm. Because declarations made in faith in the physical realm carry weight in the spiritual one. Type it for yourself. Type it for the record. Type it for the person 3 months from now who scrolls to the comments in the darkest moment of their life and reads your words and finds the edge of the courage they need to say the same. You are not alone. You have never been alone. Now you know the name of the one who sent the fighters standing in the room where you're sitting right now. Go in that knowledge. Walk in that coverage. And do not ever let anyone convince you that the war is not real, that the protection is not real, or that the God who commands the angels is not completely and utterly and irreversibly in love with you.